So I've been using the global OPPO Find X9 Ultra as my main smartphone with my main eSIM here in the US. Spoiler alert, it's incredible. But between the price and the hassle of having to import it, is the X9 Ultra worth it? If you're looking to import, that's exactly what I hope to answer in this video. Speaking of importing, you'll have to check out sites like Wanda Mobile, GizTop, MobiShop, or Trinity Mobile, which is actually where I ordered mine. Trinity, Wanda, and Mobi ship incredibly fast, while GizTop can sometimes be a bit slower. Each offer their own pricing at various currencies and inventory that fluctuates as new devices like this one launch. One major tip, only purchase a true global model if you intend to use it on a US carrier and eventually want to resell it, as the global holds more value, much better than the Chinese variants. Once the global version launches, the Chinese model's resale value tends to drop fast on sites like Swappa. Tech or mobile photography enthusiasts like myself are okay with the cost to escape the boring, repetitive updates from Apple, Samsung, and Google. For the enthusiast, this isn't just an expensive smartphone, it's a pocketable Hasselblad camera packed with genuine innovation that mainstream US flagships simply do not match. Okay, now for the phone itself. The Find X9 Ultra has an aluminum frame paired with a textured vegan leather back with triple certified IP66, IP68, and IP69 weather resistance. For connectivity, it has Wi-Fi 7, an infrared blaster, and a fast USB-C 3.2 port with video out. If you're importing the global model, it will work on T-Mobile and T-Mobile's MVNOs like Mint or Google Fi with great 4G and 5G support. AT&T and Verizon, you can expect some limited 5G connectivity depending on the local carrier bands. In my use, the X9 Ultra worked on those networks, but my experience was way more consistent and more reliable on T-Mobile. To get the specs out of the way, the OPPO Find X9 Ultra has the latest Snapdragon 8 Elite processor and a bright 6.82-inch 1440p AMOLED display that scales all the way up to 144 Hz, though I do want to note that the maximum refresh is only supported by a handful of games. I have the 12GB of RAM model. It has a massive 7050 mAh silicon carbon battery with fast charging, two specs alone no other US flagship can offer. The global model has full Google support, Google Play services, Android Auto, Google Wallet with NFC, and native eSIM support right out of the box, which I just want to mention really quick that when activating my eSIM, moving my main eSIM from another device, it was an iPhone 17 Pro Max at the time, to the OPPO, I actually had no issues whatsoever using the T-Life T-Mobile app to do that quick eSIM transfer. I can't even use the T-Life app for a lot of Nothing phones, for example. I often have to call T-Mobile in order to switch to use the eSIM on the Nothing phones like the Nothing Phone 4a Pro. I wasn't able to use the T-Life app in order to activate my eSIM on that device without calling T-Mobile. So it's really nice to see, at least in my experience on this OPPO, I was able to easily swap my main eSIM from an iPhone to the OPPO with no problems and without having to call customer service. And based on previous comments I've received before, I do want to address something. Yes, OPPO is a Chinese company, but over 70% of all smartphones, including iPhones, are manufactured in China. You can't install a privacy-first OS like Graphene OS, and yes, routing your data through Google just swaps one tech giant for another. If you're security conscious, the best compromise, if you really want to check out the cameras on this without logging in, without the concern of your data, save some money, get the Chinese model just for the cameras as a secondary device versus your primary. And even if you're not security conscious, but all you want to do is explore the cameras on an OPPO Find X9 Ultra, just get the Chinese variant. If you don't intend to use a SIM in the device here in the US, save some money, get the Chinese variant to play around with the cameras, because the cameras are ultimately the same between both the global and the Chinese variants, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to purchase the global at a higher cost if you don't intend to use a SIM with it here in the US. Paired with that Snapdragon 8 Elite chip and 12GB of RAM, the Find X9 Ultra handles anything you throw at it. It's powered by custom cores and an aggressively clocked Arduino 840 GPU. The processor delivers desktop class speeds and 4K video rendering. It manages all that power efficiently using a vacuum sealed vapor chamber to keep the battery cool alongside a smart dual NPU system that balances AI workloads to save energy. From heavy gaming to intense multitasking, the performance feels completely premium. Most flagship phones are fast these days, but this one never gave me a single moment of stutter, living up to its high-end price tag for sure. For those curious about the benchmarks as well, I ran a few. In CPU and GPU testing, it returned massive numbers with strong single-core and multi-core performance alongside an excellent overall system score. However, keeping that peak power sustained can be a challenge under heavier workloads. During an intense graphics stress test, the phone showed a stability rating of just 61.6%, with performance visibly dropping from its initial peak as it started to throttle thermals. It definitely got warm to the touch, and the benchmark temperatures reflected this as well. ColorOS 16 is actually pretty nice. The UI is fluid and gets 5 years of OS updates with regular patches already rolling out right out of the box. The X9 Ultra lets you natively airdrop files to Apple devices, mirror iOS notifications, and stream floating apps directly to your Windows PC. Linux users like me, just like I said in my OPPO Find X9 Pro video, you'll need to use local send or KDE Connect, for example, or just connect directly via USB. I'm not going to cover every detail of ColorOS here, but there are some really cool quality of life features, from modular flux folders and an eye-saving one-nit dim mode to lightning-fast one-swipe fingerprint setup, and of course there's AI tools like Gemini integrated notes, quick swipe expense tracking, and with the camera you can translate menus, for example. Battery life is insane. The X9 Pro was excellent, and similarly I easily get 2 full days of use on the X9 Ultra. When I do need a charge, it charges faster than any other smartphone officially sold here in the US. If battery is a priority for you, this is an easy recommendation. Speaking of that Find X9 Pro, I feel like I'm having deja vu here with this next section. The camera setup, the primary reason I'm sure so many of you clicked on this video, and the main flagship feature OPPO advertises, especially for pro enthusiasts. We have to talk about master mode, where you can completely bypass AI and overprocessing of your images for clean, realistic photos. Video is also great with 4K 120 FPS Dolby Vision, high-end APV 422 compression, and the ability to use custom 3D LUTs with log footage. But back to photography though, it features a dedicated sensor to eliminate indoor color tints, offers true optical bokeh with a 3x macro lens, and dynamically shifts between 25 megapixels and 12 megapixels to maximize daytime sharpness. Obviously you're buying if you prioritize cameras. It's an all-around great camera system. Personally, I primarily used master mode. I'd recommend most should do the same to avoid overprocessed results. However, let me know your thoughts on these samples in the comments down below, all with no edits or filters, just directly from the Find X9 Ultra rear cameras. Look, I absolutely love this phone and my main eSIM is still currently in it, but I learned this lesson the hard way when the Ultra dropped immediately after my Find X9 Pro review. For the average buyer who relies on trade-in deals, spending $1,600 plus US dollars outright for an import that rapidly loses value is an incredibly tough sell. Because OPPO leaks usually start in October and the actual Ultra drops around spring, you're locked into a tight 11 to 12 month upgrade window where your resale value takes a hit the second the rumor mill starts spinning. I always tell people not to buy a phone based on the future promises of tomorrow, but with the imports, you have to be calculated. You need to plan your exit strategy before your next wave of hype destroys the value. Ultimately, this device though is built by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. But if you're bored of more of the same from the big three here in the US, the OPPO Find X9 Ultra is hard to beat. It checks every single box: a great design, snappy Snapdragon performance, a beautiful display, a nearly perfect camera setup with master mode, and massive battery life with fast charging. Honestly, there isn't a single flagship currently sold in the US that can compete with what the X9 Ultra brings to the table. At the end of the day, if you want a seat at this table, however, you've got to pay the cover charge and it's not cheap. But if you do, you won't be disappointed. Of course, let me know if you have any questions on the OPPO Find X9 Ultra importing smartphones like this, and if you want to see me review more imports, let's discuss in the comments down below. As always, thank you for watching, take care, and stay safe.